All right, people. This is this is a big one. This is a really big one. In a
How
continuation, you could
big
say,
is it?
how big indeed is it? This is the first Martin Scorsese new movie that we are reviewing on this channel since 2019's Irishman, our first season, one of the first episodes that we ever did on this channel. Not only that, but it is the first Martin Scorsese movie that I have gotten to see in theaters since 2016's Silence. It is the first Martin Scorsese movie to go directly to theaters post COVID. This movie is a whopping 3.5 hours long. And surprisingly enough, a lot of people have turned out to see it. Well, I believe that this is Scorsese's only his second highest opening weekend ever, which is insane to me. Like that's actually really cool and really awesome. We're here to talk about the much anticipated, the much talked about. It's finally here. The reviews are in. Everyone has seen it. And Dustin, we are here to talk about Killers of the Flower Moon. You ready?
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. This is the Killers of the Flower Moon episode of the Talkin TV podcast. Oh man, Dustin, here we are. After I would say probably one of the best actor Hall of Fames that we've ever had on this channel. I mean, that's suffice to say. I mean, I think that every one of those episodes are bangers. But I mean, just as far as that goes, I mean, DiCaprio is what he's one of the biggest movie stars on the planet for a reason. And I want to start off this conversation by talking about maybe, you know, what I like to always do when I talk about one of these big movies. I'd say this is probably the first real big movie that we've had of the fall so far. You know, there have been some movies that have like tried to make a little bit of a stink, but I'd say this is the first one that's really hitting on like all the quadrants. Like for the most part, everybody seems to be interested in this. It's a fall movie in that it's not tied to any pre-existing franchise. It's got a big name director. It's got a couple of big name movie stars. It's about a very relevant subject matter. We'll get to that once we actually cover the subject matter itself. But I guess just in terms of the cultural climate surrounding this movie, right? It sucks because unfortunately the nature of this podcast, the nature of movies, unfortunately, as far as when we started this, required me to tie every single thing back to Marvel in some way. But I think it's safe to say Scorsese has definitely made a name for himself amongst the younger generations of people who may not have been as familiar with his earlier works by making some comments about a certain Marvel Studios back in 2019 that has definitely escalated since then. But the good thing is that definitely with how things have wrapped up since COVID, I think it's safe to say that the culture is shifting much more so to support Scorsese because, surprise, surprise, everything that he said has been 100% right. You know, the fact that they are, you know, at the end of the day, Marvel, as enjoyable as they are theme park movies, they are spectacle based, and they have kind of robbed a little bit of the art from what it is that we love so much about this medium, about this visual medium. You know, we don't watch it all for the spectacle and the explosions. We watch it for the more heartfelt, the more intimate stories that are portrayed by actual, you know, actors. You know, and it's funny because I don't think we ever actually talked about the about Scorsese's stance on Marvel. You know, I feel like it was one of those things where people like you and I looked at that, and we're just like, yeah, we were just
together.
Like,
we never talked about it.
I don't think so. No.
Well, I guess probably because we agree on what he was saying at least. Like, I don't think he's hateful towards it or anything. But I also think all the people mad at him about those comments are a bit uneducated.
To say the least. To say the least.
You know, it's one of the greatest. Some people say the greatest filmmaker we have right now. And you were saying like, this is probably the first big movie of the fall. Yeah, because it's directed by Martin Scorsese or somebody on that level, you know, and it stars one of the greatest actors we have today and probably the best actor who's ever lived in Robert De Niro, you know. So it's like, of course, if it's Scorsese and those two guys in a movie, you're gonna be a little bit interested, and they have a pretty flawless track record as far as I'm concerned. I haven't watched Gangs of New York fully yet, but until then, they have a pretty spotless track record in terms of Leo and Scorsese goes. But as far as his Marvel comments go, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think they're
really not.
they're
It's
not
really
that big
not.
of a deal. It's really the people's reaction to it,
Exactly.
and the fact
Exactly.
that these interviewers are just how many years has it been now? They keep asking him the same question
Right.
and over again.
And
It's
they
just
think
like,
this, and
"No, he
I
doesn't
love how
like the
too,
movies,"
well, I love how too they think that his response is going to change. It's like,
right?
he's 80, what? He's 80, 81,
Yeah.
82 years old. I don't think his opinions are changing, you know? It's
Hey,
like, they're
Hey,
pretty
hey,
locked.
Marty, what do you think of Blue Beetle? Like, who cares? Who gives a shit? Like, just that's not the kind of movies he makes. Why
No,
would he even
it never has been.
give
It's like,
a
who
shit?
cares,
Like, you know?
man? Yeah, it's just it's just unfortunate, really, when it's
Yeah.
like you said, the greatest, arguably the greatest living filmmaker
Mm,
is forced to participate in the modern day film shenanigans. But like, I guess the reason why I bring that up is because Scorsese obviously has talked openly. Again, he's one of the people like Nolan, like Tarantino. The thing that sets him apart and makes him one of the greats is the fact that he is all about the preservation of cinema as an art form, not just as like another for I don't even know what you could compare it to, but basically he's all about the preservation of it as like being not pure, but like just maintaining what it is that we love about it, which is at the end of the day, it's true. In an existence in which so much of our lives that we live is just lying and surviving and getting through the day, he is one of the people who puts up like actually expressing truth above all else. And that's one of the things that has always set him apart. It's a reason why he's influenced so many people. Obviously, David Chase and pretty much the entirety of The Sopranos. He has said, yeah, it's like without Goodfellas, we wouldn't have this show. It's the fact that in every one of
or
his
Mean
movies.
Streets, yeah.
I mean, Mean Streets, obviously, that's another example. Again, we covered him when we did our Scorsese Hall of Fame last month. Again, I mean, he comes back to it over and over and over again. He's no matter what, and obviously, again, people always map the crime thrillers and the gangster movies onto him as well. But at the end of the day, he's always about telling truthful stories about human beings at the end of the day, which I think is a hallmark of any great director. But I mean, again, it's like you look at even his crime related movies. I mean, he always has elements of crime in all of his movies. I think particularly in this one, I'm going to be very interested in order to break down like how he kind of like maps some of his crime storytelling techniques onto what in any other hands would be kind of sort of like a traditional Western, and sort of the genre bending that he does there. But like you look at what he does with something like Color of Money, something like like an example of something that I haven't seen but that you've seen, like Bringing Out the Dead, something like even Gangs of New York, which is more of a period piece for me, centric than anything else. Aviator, all of his movies, they all just get down to some are a little bit more pulpier, some are a little bit more over the top than others, some are a little bit more subdued. But at the end of the day, he's always about telling the most truthful experience, telling a story about the most truthful kinds of human experiences there are, and obviously, back in the day, people were like, oh, it's a little bit too over the top and a little bit too depraved. It's like, yeah, but that's how people act in this sort of environment. The reason why we keep coming back to Wolf of Wall Street is because that's how fucking guys act in that scenario. The reason why we keep coming back to Goodfellas is because that's how guys act in that scenario. It's like time and time again, he nails it, and he's always trying to go for it. He's like, what is it that we relate to? What is it that we see in this, And not always the good parts, because you hear people talk all the time about how it's like, oh, this isn't made for me, therefore I can't relate to it. And it's like, okay, first of all, if you're saying that, you clearly don't understand the purpose of movie making in general. And second of all, it's the reason why the greats are the greats is because they try to make movies for everybody. But at the end of the day, it's you understand that you're getting their perspective on the world. They are not trying to map out the end all be all take on what human beings are like. They are just simply offering up their perspective, but as truthful as it is. And Scorsese, to me, is just one of those guys that has constantly nailed that time and time again. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think he's definitely an expert of the human condition. He just knows how people act and what makes them tick, and just what makes them interesting. I mean, the only movie of his I'm not a fan of is Casino. Like I've said, everything else, even Hugo, I think like he just brings so much humanity and just into everything. And I think he's my second favorite filmmaker behind Tarantino easily. I think he's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, he's up there for me. I go back and forth all the time. It's always the triumvirate. It's always him, Nolan, and Tarantino, because I just each one of those I feel like just represents
Love
each of
Nolan too,
yeah, it just they just each represent to me like one of the three pillars of everything that I love about film. You know, Nolan with the technicals, Tarantino obviously with just the love of cinema, and Scorsese just with again with his truthful portrayal of the human condition. It's like to me those three things are the three pillars of cinema. You know, the technicals, the history, and the humanity. You know, like those are the three things I always look for in all of, and I think those three things, to me, a truly great film has to exemplify those three things. I feel like if it's missing one, then it doesn't hit the same, you know. But that brings us into, so this is, I don't even know what number film this is. I'm not even going to try it. I think it's somewhere in like the 30s as far as how many films he's done. What's it called? This is his so this is also going a little bit into other storytelling. You know, the last kind of what's it called, in his wheelhouse, I guess you could call it, because I feel like when it comes to Scorsese movies, there's always like the two types of Scorsese movies. There's the Scorsese movies that people think of as being typical Scorsese movies, you know, your Goodfellas, your Mean Streets, your Wolf of Wall Street, your Departeds, all that above. And then there's the movies that you're like, Scorsese directed that, you know, which are your movies like I mean, obviously, in hindsight, this is now obviously become known as a Scorsese movie, but like your Last Temptations of Christ, your Kunduns, your Ages of Innocence, your Color of Monies. For me, most recently, the movie that I watched and I'm like, this is amazing, and I'm like, Scorsese directed this? Like, I knew he directed it going in, but obviously in hindsight, I'm like, because it was just so different. What I'd known from him up until this point was Silence, you know, which was the last Scorsese movie. But for me, the first Scorsese movie that I ever saw in theaters, and the last one that I'd seen obviously prior to 2019 and the COVID lockdown, obviously because Irishman went directly to Netflix, you know. And as much as I enjoyed Irishman, I enjoyed his more methodical take on it. I'm like, okay, he's done this type of a story before. At the end of the day, you know, and I'm like, and again, nothing against that movie. It's still a masterpiece for what it is, and kind of his want to examine a similar type of story that's done before, but from a much different perspective, I think is the most commendable thing about that movie. But at the end of the day, I'm like, there was still a little bit of a sense of seeing this before from Irishman, which is why, again, I didn't exactly disagree. I saw where some of the disagreements for that movie were coming from. Going into Killers of the Flower Moon, however, I'm like, okay, so he's essentially making a Western, you know, but that's like the most bare bone, basic, generic blanket term that you could map onto this movie. Because no one's Scorsese, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be like a John Wayne or like a Kevin Costner movie, you know, like this is going to be very methodical. It's going to be very, intrinsic. It's going to be, you're going to be getting deep into these people's souls and minds, you know. And I remember hearing back in the day, right, the period piece elements as well, yes, you know, and the casting starts getting that. So I'm like, okay, so not only this isn't just going to be with DiCaprio. This isn't just going to be with De Niro. This is the first time we got them both for the price of one in a Scorsese movie, which I believe this is the first time that's happened where we got both of them in one Scorsese movie. You know, obviously, it's DiCaprio's 6 movies done with him. It's De Niro's 10th that he's done with him. And obviously, you know, they announced other people were like, okay, Jesse Plemons in this. You know, there was one point where during the pre-production, you didn't know it was like, okay, who the lead character is going to be. I'm like, you can't expect me to believe that Jesse Plemons is going to receive top billing over DiCaprio and De Niro. I'm like, there's no universe in which that's happening. That would have been cool, but I'm like,
that would have been really awesome.
That would have been really cool.
Leo would never allow that.
No shot. No shot at all.
Never allow that. No.
So obviously, you know, going in and figuring out more, I'm like, okay, so this is going to be another instance of where, again, he's talking about, you know, the exploitation of the Osage Nation after they discovered oil on their land in the reservation in Oklahoma, circa around like, what is this, like 1918, I think they said is when this starts, and it ends sometime around the mid 20s, and how long this went on for, about essentially how you had this one guy who was essentially reigning supreme over this one Indian reservation and kind of systematically like picking them off so that he could like channel their money that they were getting from the oil back to his own family, which is like one of the craziest ideas for like a crime story. But I'm like, this is so insane that in Scorsese's hands, this is going to be just interesting to watch. And so all that being said, right, and the biggest thing, obviously, but I liked how they handled this. I liked how they were trying to handle the length arguments before they even came out, you know, because it's like Cameron Wright was talking about this last year when Avatar 2 came out, and he was like, yeah, I'm sorry, but anybody who goes and watches 8 episodes of Stranger Things but complains about how fucking long my movie is full of shit. So I'm glad that Cameron kind of got the ball rolling there. And so that, like, I feel like when it came to like the length of what this was going to be. Well, it also helped that we'd also gotten like, this has kind of been the year of 3-hour long movies, between John Wick 4 and Oppenheimer and all the other movies. Like we've been getting a decent amount of 3-hour long movies this year. So this being 3.5, I feel like it wasn't that big of a stretch, there's also the Apple TV component of this as well, but I think it's kind of interesting because while obviously Apple TV is the reason why this movie is made, I think it's interesting because this is the first movie that Apple TV has put in theaters exclusively, right? This isn't one of those day and date drop for in theaters and on streaming. Like this is exclusively playing in theaters. It does not have a release date as far as when it's coming to streaming. So like the people are like, okay, if you want to see this, you have to go out to a theater to see this. And now that we've finally seen it, you got to see it a little bit earlier than me. You saw it on Thursday, right before we did our DiCaprio Hall of Fame. I saw it on Saturday. And now that we have finally seen it, Dustin, what are your initial thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon?
I think Killers of the Flower Moon is very, very good. I'm not in love, but I do very much like it. And I rewatched most of it last night on the cam rip, online just to see, because I just wanted to refresh because that's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
To me, I know you're gonna argue the Irishman felt longer, but at least it was more engrossing to me and more like it was less information dump on you. Like there was so many things. And by the last scene of the movie, which we'll get into, it's just you really have to pay attention to that in order to get every single detail. But I think it's length notwithstanding, which honestly, I'm not usually that guy that complains about length unless it's really fucking long, and I think this was really fucking long. And I'm all for long movies, and I'm usually all for Scorsese's long movies, but it definitely could have been trimmed a little bit. Just a little bit, just to quote De Niro. But other than that, I do think it's very, very good, and it's obviously one of the best movies of this year because this year is garbage. But yeah, Scorsese is a master at what he does, and we'll get more into it. I did very much like it, though.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Coming out of this, I really, really enjoyed this. This is definitely one of the best of the year. But I wanted to go back to that point that you brought up, which again, I know you and I have talked about this so many times on this podcast. We're blue in the face, which is the idea of just the nature and overall quality of what movies are now, and kind of the movies that we get now that we view as our favorites. And we're like, yeah, 5, 6, 10 years ago, this would have been a mid-tier movie. But now, because of the nature of the year that it comes out in, it's one of the best ones. And I find that interesting because that was one of those things, that was one of those instances where I'm like, I am hoping to Christ that Scorsese can beat it. I'm like, if anybody can beat that mantra, it's him. And he does. But at the same time, there was this lingering thought in the back of my head throughout this entire movie, which I did enjoy. Again, I really, really enjoyed every minute. I'll get into my thoughts in the length in a minute, but there was this lingering thought in the back of my head where I'm like, if this was 2018 and me watching this in 2018, 2017, that's not fair because I even those years I hated. If I was watching this movie in say 2014, 2015, would I have enjoyed it as much as I am watching it in the year 2023? Obviously, my age that I was at the time versus what I am now, notwithstanding. But I'm just saying, if you were to take me with my mindset now, and if this movie had come out in 24, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have hit the same way. And I know it. And I know it in my gut. And I hate it. I hate that so much. But we both know that it's true.
Age. We are at the right age for it now, I would say. I think this would have totally went over our heads, and we would have been a little bored by it if we were 15, 16 when we saw this. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of his most depressing movies also.
Oh,
and it's dreary and it's so long. But besides that, the thing that kind of makes this movie kind of vital is the fact that it is a true story.
Yes.
This shit happened.
Yes.
And it's evil, and it's yeah, by that third hour, it's just yeah, I get it. It's insane. Yeah. And how many we're seeing the same scene over and over again. But other than that, I think by the time Jesse Plemons and Brendan Fraser come into the picture and in the last 45 minutes or so, I think that's when it gets a little bit more on track. I was a big fan of that the last 5 minutes of the movie, but the last shot is what kind of it was kind of preachy, that last shot, but I for the most part I did very much enjoy this, but it was very, very bleak and just
yes,
it just felt like it was just doing the same thing over and over again. But not in like a casino way,
Right.
in my opinion.
Which repetitive to a quite egregious degree.
Which I could elaborate on because I did for some dumb fuck reason rewatch that last night.
Oh God,
But
why?
I don't know. I really love that Joe Pesci performance. You know,
Man.
and that whole time, this is another name I was thinking of for the De Niro performance. Who should have been De Niro in that movie? Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
They need.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to sound anti-Semitic, but they needed a Jew in that movie.
They
I
no,
just don't
it's
buy De Niro
well,
as a Jew
that
in that,
and also it's just that I feel like for
at
what's
all.
required for that lead part,
Yeah,
like the type of energy that De Niro brings, normally he always jives well with Scorsese, but
he's
it
kind of
doesn't
doing
work.
Jimmy Conway in that, don't you
Yeah,
think?
it
Like
just
he is kind
doesn't
of doing Jimmy the
work
Gent
at
in
all.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, at all. But so as far as Kills of the Flower Moon goes, I guess
Mhm.
just kind of because you're right, because we talked about this a little bit in terms of like the Irishman length versus Kills of the Flower Moon. I'm a little bit of the opposite side of the fence. I think that Irishman felt just a tad bit too long versus this one, and it might have just been because of the Netflix versus in theaters thing. You know, in theaters, I'm forced to sit there for the whole 3.5 hours versus when I was watching Irishman. I definitely know I did not watch all 3.5 hours in one sitting. I definitely took breaks and went and used the bathroom. It's funny. I always tell the story when I was watching Irishman. It was the perfect buffer because I was watching it on Thanksgiving Day. So basically, I would go in, watch an hour, go back down, chill with my family when I needed a break from them, come back up, watch another hour of The Irishman, then go back. And it was kind of like all worked itself out. So, and I don't know if I necessarily it would have been the same experience if I had watched all 3.5 hours of it in a theater. But I will say that kind of I don't know if this is a result of me watching this in theaters as opposed to waiting for it and watching it at home or not, but there was just something about the theatrical experience and me being forced to watch and endure every minute of it. It kind of, in a way, like all the pieces kind of meshed. So, like, even though, yeah, I felt the length, there was never any point where I'm like, okay, when is this going to end? You know, because that to me is always my measurement of the length of a movie. It's not necessarily how long it actually is. It's again, it's the thing that they always say. Is the story good? Like let me put it this way. Priscilla, which I saw last weekend, right at New York Film Festival, is an hour and 40 minutes, and it felt like 3 hours. I'm like, after a certain point, I'm like, okay, I get it. When is this gonna fucking end? Seriously. Versus this movie, I'm like, I kind of after a certain point, I'm like, I kind of know where it's going, but I'm still interested, and because I'm like, I'm invested in these characters. I'm invested in what's going on, which is kind of crazy when you consider just how despicable and how awful, like even by Scorsese's standards, Scorsese's brought us some of the most heinous characters that we've ever seen on screen, and the fact that he somehow tops that in this movie with some of the like let me put it this way. Some of the more problematic characters that he's brought to the screen before, you could argue that it's like, okay, you know, they're enjoyable to watch. You know, yes, they're awful people, but they're enjoyable to watch. These guys were not enjoyable to watch. It really wasn't. Like after a certain point, the fact that you were watching just pure, not even just a
Yeah.
thing of where it's like, oh, you know, there's like a Robin Hood element of it. You know, they're not as well off, so you can sort of sympathize. Now, these are like already like extremely wealthy and well off people who are just
Yeah.
purely taking advantage where they can, you know, and there's just something that
Yeah.
just feels a little bit more shitty about that.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna compare the mafia to like whatever they were in this movie, just fucking evil.
Well, I guess
But
just in terms of like
they,
different instances of crime, you know, different
oh,
sorts of crime
absolutely. Like I guess this was more premeditated, that's for sure,
for
because
sure.
I guess that was sort of a flaw I had with this movie was that like De Niro, who by the way, MVP. MVP of the movie, De Niro.
Yes.
We'll talk
Yes.
more about him, but he pretty much spells it out right in the first like
Right.
15-20 minutes of the movie. Is it's like, no, you need the head rights. She's got blood right, or whatever he said to him in the
Right.
beginning. Like, oh, she's got blood rights, and you should go for her. And like he was pretty much nudging him along into like
Right.
convincing him
No,
to be like,
very
yeah,
deliberately, very
yeah.
deliberately was playing the chess master there. Like he knew
So
exactly what he was doing.
that already kind of gave away what the movie was, in my opinion. Where it's just like, so once the murders kept happening and happening and happening and happening, I was just like, yeah, you already kind of gave it away. Like, what's
Right.
like, is this supposed to be a mystery or is this just supposed to be an examination of how awful white people were back then to Native
Right.
Americans, which they fucking were. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not arguable. But yeah, it's definitely the latter, and for that, I think it is fascinating, and you're right, you hate watching these characters, but at least that's kind of the point of the movie. I think it definitely had more of a point than what Casino was
Oh
doing,
yeah.
in my opinion, because
Oh yeah, I still don't know
yeah,
what the purpose of making Casino was, because to me there's
yeah,
absolutely nothing that he got across in Casino that he didn't already get across in Goodfellas. To me, and I know there are people who have made
exactly.
arguments about that, but I'm sorry, I don't buy any of them because none of them make sense. I'm like, there's
It's
nothing that I got from Casino that I didn't already get from Goodfellas.
it's Goodfellas with a slower pace, weaker, just a slightly weaker ensemble, definitely a weaker script than
Yes,
Goodfellas, that's for sure. I mean, most of the best lines in that movie are definitely improvised, I would say. Like like you could tell that the script of Goodfellas just structurally is way more sound and airtight than the script for Casino. But
yes,
like I was rewatching that last. I'm sorry to bring this up, but I have to compare it to Killers of
yeah,
the Flower Moon. Like I kept complaining to you about Lily Gladstone getting poisoned like
right,
17 times in this
right,
movie.
right,
It's still not as annoying as every scene with Sharon Stone coming back to
correct,
the house
correct,
over and over again. Like, I leave you, I hate you. I hate you. Like,
yeah,
that's like just annoying. That's like annoyance porn. That's like a term I've coined over the years. Like, that's annoyance porn.
yes,
This movie, like, this shit happened to this poor woman.
yes.
She had such a fucking awful like this kind of reminds me of the story of the Von Erichs, but that didn't involve somebody orchestrating the murders,
Right.
obviously. But like just the toppling of the siblings in this movie is just
Yeah, it's
it's
insane.
a little coincidental.
I guess just because, like, in terms of, so in order to bring it back to your point about De Niro and kind of like spelling out the whole plan and
Yeah,
essentially the whole plot of the movie, I guess just in the sense of like, for me, that works from a script
sure.
writing and like from a storytelling perspective. It's like where because there I've seen other instances of movies before where they tell you exactly what's going to happen in the opening couple of minutes and then they stick to it to a degree where it's like, because that's the emphasis is like they want to
Mhm.
emphasize, they're telling you straight up so that you know going in, exactly what you're going to get because of how harsh and how and just again to portray just the evil of these characters that you're watching. And I guess just in terms of like watching, for me, just one of the most different kinds of crime stories that I've ever seen. I guess that's kind of the best way that I can describe it. I really can't think of any other movie that this immediately reminds me of. Just obviously, again, we've seen plenty of movies before about the integration of like, whites versus Native Americans, but it's always the same. It's always the same white savior trope that we've seen over
Yeah.
and time again. It's like the one good one who comes to see that the persecuted are being persecuted and then teams up with them to kill off all the bad ones. That's not what this was at all. If anything, this was almost like a flipping that on its head, where you have DiCaprio, who traditionally has played the handsome leading guy, and here obviously he's a little bit more run down. He's playing very, very dumb. He's got the gut. He's got the nasty teeth, which he wants to show off every couple seconds. Going more so into our thing about DiCaprio, where DiCaprio, again, is the perfect lead, but always wants to get a little bit more charactery, and kind of how you essentially watch him. This character, as you talked about, kind of gets strung along and played along. Like at the end of the day, he's just another pawn in this plan. But it's interesting watching the dichotomy of his character, where this is a character who thinks that he's in such this great position, only to realize at the end that he was just another pawn. But that doesn't excuse anything that he's done. Like he is just aware of just how heinous the actions that he's committing are, while at the same
Right.
time having absolutely no knowledge that he's a pawn. And I understand what you were saying now in terms of this being like a really tricky kind of a performance to pull off. And if it was anybody else other than DiCaprio in that part, it would not have worked at all.
Well, maybe Gyllenhaal could have done this actually.
Maybe, but
I feel like Gyllenhaal could have fucking been better in this movie because
really, see,
I just don't
I don't
find
know.
while I do think he is brilliant at points in this movie, I do feel like Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to play stupid characters, but like he's too smart to play characters that are supposed to be as dumb as the character he's playing in this movie, if that makes any sense. And that's just a slight nitpick because there's like halfway through the movie and like or over halfway through the movie, I'm saying to myself, yeah, he knows what he's doing, right? And then like a scene or two later, he's
Right.
acting like he's oblivious, and I'm just like, no, but you were aware. I was just that was the only little complaint I had about him. Other than that, he was phenomenal and terrific emotionally resonant performance. You hate this character as much as you like this character and feel bad for him. It's a very tricky performance, like I said the other night. But barring that little nitpick I have, I do think he still gives a great performance in this. However, De Niro really steals the
Dude.
movie for me as King
Dude.
Hale. Like,
Oh my God. Like,
that's
and
the
it's so
performance
funny
of the
because
movie.
I still remember back to when The Irishman came out, and everyone was ready to write De Niro off as being like, he's done. He's just doing a
Yeah,
bunch of paycheck movies now. And then when I heard that he was back with Scorsese, I'm like, well, he's back with Scorsese
right?
for the first time since Casino, ironically. I'm like, there's no way that they can screw this up. And then he killed it in Irishman.
Oh,
I still think that
yes.
of all the lead performances they skipped over for the best actor race of 2019. Again, another instance where another best actor race where they just screwed the pooch on so many different choices.
Well,
Where
he was
arguably
the
the only
second
three
most egregious, yeah,
but him not getting nominated for that when both Pacino and Pesci got nominated was
sure.
absolutely ridiculous. But this one, I mean, there's no way he can't be nominated for this, right? This is not only the
That would
best
be
performance that he's
crazy.
given since years, but hard pressed to say that at exactly 80 years of age, I would know we share a birthday, fun fact, but
Oh, cool.
um, but this might be one of the best performances of his career. Holy shit! Like,
Well, it's in
I've
the top
never seen him.
20, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen him give a performance like this before. Like, I honestly, I cannot. There's still a lot of Robert De Niro movies that I need to watch. I've still never seen Untouchables. I've never seen Angel Heart. I've never seen. There's a long list of Robert De Niro movies that I still need to watch.
Yeah, I
But
gotta watch Angel Heart, yeah.
but yeah, this performance is incredible. It's just how he is literally playing this charming, smooth, charismatic. It's a mix of like Southern, but he speaks the native tongue, so that gives him like a little bit like more edge and authority. And he does such a good job of playing back and forth between the kindly, gentlemanly
Yes.
grandfather versus the conniving, manipulative, mob boss. It's the
Yeah.
one instance where I was like, yeah, this is what he's like playing the boss. Because in a weird way, like, we've never seen De Niro play like the boss outside of like Al Capone in The Untouchables, which is a little bit more
Well,
corny and
yeah.
over the top and a little bit more campy, But this is the first time where he's the Don, he's the guy, he's the puppet master, he's the one pulling all the strings. Again, he never gets angry or frustrated unless he's dealing with incompetence. But for the most part, no, he's the chess master. And just seeing him get to play this part in such a way that's like so different from any of the other performances he's given. It's masterful work. And once again, is a reminder that he is one of the best, if not the best living actor that we have right now.
Yeah, he might be the best of all time, honestly, because I was looking through my list and he might have more great performances than any other actor.
Yeah.
Like, he really might. And just everything from his first scene with Leonardo DiCaprio to the scene where he's paddling his ass. It's fucking
That
great.
scene, I was like,
That,
what the fuck is happening? But I
yeah,
still understood every single minute of it. Like, I know exactly what's
yeah,
going on here.
he's intimidating in a different way than he's ever been before in a movie, and it feels like the most chameleonic he's been in years. And again, comparing it to him in Casino, like, he just feels so much like a totally different character in this movie than he's ever played, as compared to Casino, where he's just playing Jimmy the Gen again, even though he's supposed to be playing this Jewish guy. So it's just brilliant work. Going on to Lily Gladstone, who is
Yes.
getting a bunch of buzz, and she's probably going to win Best Actress for Shallow Reasons, but she is excellent in this
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
I wish she was in it a little bit more, because the last hour and a half really relegates
Right.
her to the bed. But other than that, when she has to really deliver those quiet, powerful moments, she really shines,
Yeah.
especially opposite Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I agree.
And she hasn't been in that many huge movies like this. She
Right.
hasn't worked with
The biggest
anybody
thing that
like
I've seen her in
Scorsese.
is she played a very small but pretty significant part in the last 2 seasons of Reservation Dogs. She plays the character for any people who've seen that
Okay.
on there. She plays the character of Willie Jack's aunt on there in a penultimate season 2 episode that was particularly really, really emotionally resounding. And she comes back to play again a similar part in season. You really got to watch Reservation Dogs. That is a show that just surpassed my expectations in
Oh, you think I like
every
that?
single part. I think you would. It took me a little bit of time to get into it, because I wasn't really sure what kind of a show it was. But once I got used to its tone, and that season 2 finale really hit me, and it really hit me hard, in a way that I was not expecting. And then it just wrapped up its run and finished its third and final season over the summer. And the finale, it got me. It did an
Oh,
interesting
it's
thing where,
done?
yeah, it finished. Yeah, it's done.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that, Physical, Sex Education, they all wrapped up. They're all done. All of those shows.
Well, the
So
last 2, I figured, but, like, the
yeah.
first one, I thought that was a hot new show that was gonna be on for a few more
It,
years.
it, it was. I thought it was too, but no. But if anything, I commend them. I commend the creator Sterling Harjo even more for it, because he had his story that he wanted to tell, and he
Yeah.
realized, like, yeah, this is done. This is done. And like with the way that season 3 wraps up, it's like, no, this wrapped up perfectly. Especially because it was one of those situations where after season 2, I'm like, this is the show. They wrapped everything. They can't do anything else after this, And then they do it for season 3, announced it's going to be the last one. I was heartbroken, but I'm like, this is probably for the best. And as far as I'm concerned, they killed it. But no, Gladstone, she kicked ass in that show. And if anything, like, put it this way, that show made me aware of how good she was going to be and why she was going to be so good for this part. Because again, like all the other performances, it's a tricky performance to nail. Where, again, I was so waiting. I'm like, okay, she's gonna be like, the modern femme boss, where she's gonna just be, oh, look at these white men coming in to take everything from us, and we've got to do something. But she doesn't, in a weird way, like again, it's one of the hardest things to wrap your minds around, where it's like, again, like all of these Native Americans, these Osage nation people are questioning and wondering where all these murders are coming from. And I'm like, and again, in a dumber, more poor written movie, I would be yelling at the screen, being like, those fucking guys over there that are controlling everything, and you guys can't figure it out. But because of, again, just how well written this is, and how methodical it is, and how it establishes, it's like, yes, they have been ingrained in the community for years on end. They've probably been dealing with this for years. They're probably just used to it. And
it's the 20s. It's easier to get away with crime in the fucking 20s.
Exactly. That helps. But again, it's the fact that that again, you're following Lily Gladstone the whole time, and you're with her every single step of the way, and it helps that she is the most sympathetic character in the movie, because again, there's a lot of stuff because pretty much everything that's happening is happening just outside of her peripheral.
Well, every Indian is the most sympathetic character in the movie.
True, but she's like the focal point,
Oh,
especially since like, she essentially has to watch her entire family get murdered in front of her, like all of her sisters, the guy who's revealed to be her first husband, and they haven't technically divorced. Her mom, dies of old age, and then her, and the fact that freaking DiCaprio, for the entire for the entire like middle hour of the movie, is basically like systematically poisoning her, and she barely survives. Finally, when Jesse Plemons comes in at the end in order to, like, start to wrap things up and all that. But yeah, it's a tremendously difficult performance, and she really carries it. It's not like what would be like just another generic performance in anybody else's hands. And yeah, if she gets nominated and wins, more power to her. Of course, if she wins for the right reason, is anybody going to be saying, oh no, because she's the first Native American Oscar winner? Of course, we all know that that's going to be the reason. But it's one of the instances where, yes, she actually does deserve it. Is it going to be the best lead actress performance of the year? I mean,
TBD.
Just given the caliber of lead actress performances we've gotten this year, I say that it might probably get it by default, especially given that this has been a much stronger year for comedic lead actress performances than dramatic ones, which is kind of insane when you think about that, because that almost never happens.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Tiana Taylor in 1001, which won Sundance, and I think that's probably my favorite female performance of the year still. She was excellent in that and deserves an Oscar campaign. But they fucked that movie's release up. Sony Pictures Classics, goofy fucks.
Yeah, I still have not seen that, but I what's it called? But you would say it's worth watching, right?
Oh, for sure. She's incredible in it.
Got it. All right, I will definitely be sure to watch that one. But yeah, what's
Blackberry called?
First? Trust me, that's on the list. It's Blackberry first, then it's How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and then it's a couple other ones that I am not remembering right now. At least I saw it. Are you kidding me? With how much you've been hampering on that movie, there's no way I wasn't watching that movie the minute that it dropped. Like, come on.
And the trailers were cool too.
But it was just the fact of it's just the fact that I thought that was going to be like an emoji movie for so long, but about 10. No, I swear, we had this discussion. And then you told me what it was actually about, and then I'm like, oh, okay. And yeah, no, you want to talk about a movie that like just got screwed theatrically, because if that had gone to theaters, oh man, like that might have been the return that we would have wanted. But yeah,
That
so
might have made money, yeah.
it might have, but yeah. So, like I said, about this movie, yeah. And as far as like, I think probably the most interesting element to me was again the fact that you're essentially mixing a crime story, a period piece, and a western all together. And again, it's one of those instances where again I feel like a lot of the filmmakers that are really, really hitting it and understanding it are, they want to mix up and mesh and break away from a lot of the traditional genre folds. Obviously you see Jordan Peele and Ari Aster doing that with horror. You see Greta Gerwig doing that with everything that she does. My favorite filmmaker, of the new film brats, Corey Finley, does that well. Even with Landscape with Invisible Hand, which I know you are not a big fan of. But there's a reason why I bring those guys up, because obviously, when Scorsese was talking about the behind the scenes, some of the influences about this, it's one of the other reasons why he's one of the greats, is because Scorsese does not stick to his guns, do the same thing over and over again. He's always trying to, grow and change his filmmaking techniques and try to make different sorts of movies, and, I get, he even, said that that he took inspiration from Ari Aster and some of the filmmaking techniques when it came to some of the filming that he did for this. I don't know. Do you agree with that, or do you see where he was coming from there?
Definitely. In the cinematography, definitely.
Yeah.
Beautiful looking movie.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Robbie Robertson did the music
Yes,
also,
he did his last
and
one.
yeah, and he's passed away.
Yeah.
That was
And it
sad.
worked too, because it's like, there were a couple times where I was like expecting, I'm like, okay, when are the hits gonna come on? But like it was very subdued. I really appreciated that. Again, cinematography, the score, the editing, it's all pitch perfect. Again, he's a technical master. Who did this one? Prieto shot this one too, right? Because Prieto's
Yeah.
done the last couple of Scorsese movies. Yeah, I think the last one that he shot with Bob Richardson was Hugo, and Bob Richardson's been shooting the last couple of Tarantino movies anyways. But again, just across the board, technically sound, technically proficient. Now, what I'm going to be interested in to see going forward is to see this movie's placement in the culture, right? Because as far as his last couple movies, right, and post Wolf of Wall Street, which was like the last like big smash grab, yes, that's the movie that defines this year. Silence, I feel like kind of flew under everybody's radars, even though that was to me one of the best films that I saw in 2016. Irishman had its place, but I feel there were a couple things, the Netflix of it all, and obviously the Marvel comments and the length, and because people were like, oh no, 3.5 hours, that's too long. And the fact that, people were saying, oh, Scorsese's done this type of a story before and all that. So I just felt like Irishman, there was a little bit too much baggage. So I'm going to be interested to see this movie's placement in the culture going forward. I feel like right now, some of the initial discussion is about, yes, it's like, majority of people who are going to see this are younger people, which shows that there is still an interest in this. The length seems to not matter as much. The opening box office, even though obviously it's not like a Marvel movie opening, but the fact that, again, 44 million, that's no number to sneeze at, especially especially given that it is his second biggest opening box office ever, which I think is really impressive. I'll be interested to see.
I want to tell you the worst part of this movie, actually.
Yes.
Hearing Taylor Swift through the fucking theater walls. That was the worst part.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up, because
why is she still playing Romeo? Save me and be alone. It's like, what? That came out when we were in fucking elementary school. Why is she still playing that song?
Listen, man, listen. She's a mega pop star, and there's a reason why her hits are still hits. All these years later. But yeah, you're right. Fuck, we were in elementary school for that. I thought that we were at least in middle school when that came out. But
no.
Oh my god,
that was
wow.
the year Kanye went on stage and be like, "Yeah, I'm
right. Yeah,
Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time."
Yep. I remember that. But yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because I remember when I remember when I saw that, I'm like, oh, the Eras movie is gonna come out. The Eras concert movie, and it's coming out the same weekend as Killers of the Flower Moon. And I was worried. I'm like, well, great, Killers of the Flower Moon doesn't stand the fucking chance out. So everybody our age is gonna go and watch Taylor Swift, in theaters, as if they haven't already seen her fucking a million times in concert already. But
yeah, right.
But I do think it is interesting, because you see like guys like Christopher Nolan coming out and saying like, oh, because Taylor, is such a big pop star and she was able to surpass traditional theatrical venues and just go directly to the theaters in order. I'm like, of course she can do that. She's one of the 5 biggest, most influential, richest famous people on the planet. Of course she can do that, you know? So I just think the idea of like, oh, everyone praising Taylor Swift is like, oh, you know, a forebearer of the changing in the theatrical cinematic landscape. I'm like, no. I'm sorry, that's not the thing, because guess what? She is, you want to talk about everything that these fucking filmmaking people have been talking about as far as popularist entertainment destroying what it is that we love about the theatrical experience. I'm sorry, Taylor Swift to me is right up there with Marvel. She's right up there with Marvel as far as being the worst kind of popularist entertainment that you could possibly get. You know, everyone loves her. I'm not faulting everybody for loving her. You can enjoy it, but I'm just talking that this is going to be another one of those hypocritical instances where everybody who shits on Marvel saying that Marvel's destroying cinema, but then turns around and praises Taylor Swift for fucking selling out seats in a theater when she's already made $1.5 billion on this fucking concert tour that she's made. Get the fuck out of here. Come on. I'm sorry.
Did Marvel really ruin cinema, or was it movie theater prices?
And every other sort of different thing that we've talked about, obviously, over the last 10 years.
I don't know. I don't think it's fair to just pin it all on Marvel.
No, and I've said this for a while now, that Marvel is not solely responsible for the quote-unquote death of cinema that everyone's talked about, you know?
I might shit on you sometimes and be like, oh, you love your Marvel and Star Wars, but I don't think they're fucking ruining, you know, the art. You know, I do enjoy those as well from time and time again, you know? I really enjoy some of those. Some of them I love, but like, you know, I'm not going to judge everybody that, you know, loves those movies, you know?
Right. But I will judge hypocrites because I love to,
sure,
because hypocrites deserve to be judged. Because again, I had this one college professor back in school who I still love to shit on to this day because he hated every single Marvel thing, but loved every single Star Wars thing. And I'm like, yeah, Josh, you're full of shit. You are full of fucking shit and no explanation. And I love how we always try to back it up as like, he would always try to offer things, and at the end of the day, he was like, oh, I know more than you because I'm older. I'm like, nah, that's not how that works. That's not how that works.
That's condescending.
At all.
No, it's just annoying because those people are being so reductive about, like, the Marvel fans are about Scorsese. Is like, no, but Scorsese makes the fucking same movie over and over and over.
It's like, no, and it's like, if you actually watch his movies, you would know that he doesn't.
Hey,
you would know that he doesn't.
Did you see Silence? No. Then how would you know?
Then how would you know? You're like, what's Silence? Exactly.
Did you see Shutter Island? Did you see
what's Shutter Island? That old movie, and even though it came out,
that old movie.
I gotta talk about that.
Sound like Tom Holland.
The people who say that movies that came out in 2010 and later are old movies fucking crack me up. I'm sorry, that shit is hilarious to me.
You know that really old movie with Leonardo DiCaprio that came out when I was 2 called Shutter Island? Like, okay,
right, and like Leonardo DiCaprio and the Hulk, which I'm like, that's wild to me that Shutter Island predates the Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, but like,
oh, and what's his name? Fucking from Iron Man 3.
From Iron Man, the fake Mandarin from Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Oh, idiots! I love poking fun at idiots on the internet.
You know what's funny about that movie? Dumb, like 13-year-old me saw the trailer for that and was like, whoa, is a young Robert De Niro in that movie? And it's Elias Koteas. I was like, wow, the makeup is fire in this movie. But those people are just morons. Like that kid we went to high school with is talking about
God, that fucking guy.
How Scorsese makes the same movie over, like, because he did 4 mob movies, like, or 4 crime movies. Like, who cares? Like, they're still all great.
That guy to me is the definition of a guy who like has watched like 5 movies in his entire life and just like, isn't that what were those guys like top 5 movies again? Because I know you told me about them, and like when you showed me that list, I wanted to vomit.
No, his favorite movie of all time is like Spider-Man: No Way.
Oh yeah. Which
like that'll tell you all you need to know. Like
that tells you all you need to know.
That's all he talks about is Tom Holland.
Bandwagon hoppers is what I like to call them. Bandwagon hoppers.
And they talk shit about like and he was saying, like, he was calling the Joker a pyro in the Dark Knight.
What does that even mean? Like
he was reducing him just down to like, he does more than just blow shit up, or like fire or set stuff on fire. It's like, that's so hilarious to just call him a pyro.
Yeah.
But going back to Killers of the Flower Moon,
Right? I was about to say, I'm like, after that little tangent right
I'm
there.
sorry.
No. It's good. Yeah, because we're almost at the hour mark, so we're about ready to wrap things up. But yeah, as far as this movie's awards potential, yeah, it's getting everything, right? Picture, director, actor, supporting actor, whatever category Lily Gladstone runs in, probably actress, adapted screenplay. Like
If they don't
this
dominate the
movie's gonna be
narrative.
everything. I would be surprised if this ends up being the most nominated movie of the movie with the most. It'll be between this and Oppenheimer as far as what gets like the most amount of nominations. You know, now that Dune 2 is out of the running, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be these two movies, you know? And it was one of those things where again, I wasn't sure if it made my top 5 by default or not. But again, just for the again, just nature of this is easily it's one of my favorites of the year for sure. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute of it. Like, it's funny because I know we just talked about like how miserable, bleak, and dreary this movie was, but again, I really enjoyed it. It was thought
Oh,
provoking.
yeah.
It was intense. It was engaging. It was everything that I love. That I love about when I watch a Scorsese movie. You know,
Oh,
it's
what
like
did you think of the radio play at the end with
yeah,
Jack
that
White
was
shows up?
interesting, and I wasn't expecting that. That was definitely a different approach that he's taken to those sorts of things before, but I kind of liked it. It was I thought when he came on Scorsese at the end specifically, I thought it was a little bit. I'm like, this is a little bit self-congratulatory, but like not enough to like really be egregious for me.
No, I thought it played right into the story perfectly because they said it was the J. Edgar Hoover presents, you know, the story of the Osage murders. So it was like
Right.
it was a great little wrap up and epilogue, and it like I said before, you have to really pay close attention to like all of what they were saying because it's moving in a very fast paced fashion.
Yeah.
That's the one part of the movie that's fast paced. But
Right.
but other than that, I just want to quickly touch on a couple of the supporting actors that we get in this. The guy that played the cowboy that Leo hires to like kill Henry was his name.
Yeah.
That guy was great.
Yes.
The country singer Sturgill Simpson plays like his boss. Like he was really good. Also, and Louis Cancel Me or Cancel
Yes.
Me, who
Yes.
was in The Irishman, who was also a standout in that movie,
Yep.
stands out big time in this in his few little moments. And of course, you get John Lithgow and Brendan Fraser as the attorneys in the last 30-40 minutes of this movie, and they're both terrific. It was great seeing Brendan Fraser choose some scenery, add some life into it, which in a movie that's full of death, Indian Native American death, and Jesse Plemons, of course,
Of course.
is just great. Just that's excellent. One of our finest character actors
Yep.
we have.
Matt Damon and Philip Seymour Hoffman's love child, and he just shines in everything.
Absolutely. And I swear to it's him and Paul Walter Hauser fighting for that Philip Seymour Hoffman belt.
Yep.
But just one thing about Jesse Plemons in this movie that I found kind of hilarious in retrospect. Uh he was calling Leonardo DiCaprio's son a lot in this movie.
I did notice that.
And
I did notice
he's
that.
like significantly younger
Significantly
than
younger. They're
Leonardo
like
DiCaprio.
it's almost a decade between.
Oh, that's
Like,
significant for me.
yeah.
Yeah, like
I do admit that was pretty funny. That
dude,
was pretty funny to
you're
me.
calling him son. You were the bully in Like Mike 20 years ago. Like, what are you like?
Oh my god.
But
Wait,
he's great in this movie.
he was the bully in Like Mike?
Yeah,
Oh my god. Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. So I always just think of young Jesse Plemons. I just think Friday Night Lights, you know, because
Nope.
that's just like pre-Breaking Bad. But damn, that's crazy.
Like Mike.
Like Mike. Wow. Look at that.
Him in the oversized Allen Iverson jersey and ripping it is classic. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, so with that being said, Dustin, final thoughts and star ratings for Killers of the Flower Moon.
I'm giving this a strong 8.5 out of 10, strong 4 out of 5. This is one of the best movies of this year. That's kind of faint praise, but I do very much enjoy it. I don't think it's going to be as rewatchable as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I'm sorry, I'm a 12-year-old, but I do think this movie is excellent. It's definitely not top tier Scorsese for me personally. Sorry, I just think Wolf of Wall Street, Departed, King of Comedy, Goodfellas, Color of Money, even Bringing Out the Dead, like the Irishman, they're just more rewatchable and interesting. It's good to see a movie like this, like Oppenheimer. I kind of feel the same way I did about Oppenheimer. I felt a little more angsty about the length when it comes to this movie, and Oppenheimer was more closer to just 3 hours flat. which I appreciated. But even that movie, I thought it dragged a little bit. But this one, like, and Oppenheimer both felt like kind of history book movies.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah,
And
very
it's
much
good to
so.
see and like 12 Years a Slave too, which is a better movie than both of these. It's good to see those movies at least once because
Yes.
they're important and vital, and that shit fucking happened and it's
Yes.
awful, but it's good to know about it.
Yes.
8.5 out of 10. It's not going to be as great. It's not going to be definitely as watchable or definitely not quotable as any of his other movies or better movies, but it's definitely very good.
I
And
agree.
like
I agree wholeheartedly. I gave it a little bit more. I gave this one a 4.5. Again, it's in my top 5 of the year, but it's not. You're 100% right. This was not to me like god tier Scorsese at all. Yeah, I agree very very much. So it is kind of interesting that this and Oppenheimer kind of came out of the same year, and they're both kind of their history pieces. They're dealing with like the existential dread nature of it. You know, kind of like where we go. You know, Oppenheimer I would say is like slightly more positive if you could give it even that, you know, but I guess it's only just because the lead character is a lot more sympathetic in Oppenheimer than they are here. But no, I agree with pretty much everything you said. Yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. So with that being said, people, that is it. That is our review of Killers of the Flower Moon. Let us know what you thought. We will be wrapping up Shocktober next weekend with our Five Nights at Freddy's review. May also talk a little bit about Pain Hustlers, which also drops on Netflix next Friday. Dustin, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me on YouTube, Mr. G Movie Reviews. They can follow me on Letterboxd, Dustin Mason, and they can follow me on Twitter, Duster.
Absolutely. And of course, follow me with everything I've got going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms. Be sure to follow the official Talkin TV podcast across all platforms. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. What's it called? This episode will be available. Subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us if you're watching us on Twitch. This episode will be available tomorrow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or any place else that you listen to podcasts. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.